like to go back. There is a doorway in the universe. Beyond it is the promise of truth. It demands we question everything we have ever been taught. The evidence is all around us. The future is right before our eyes. We are not alone. We have never been alone. I'm excited to be here with you guys to talk about everything that's going on with space exploration. I think it's a natural part of evolution to actually go back to the stars. I deliberately say go back to the stars or return to the stars because according to the ancient astronaut theory, that is where we came from.
SpaceX now has sent astronauts to the International Space Station, and so we've now entered a whole new era of space exploration, one that's privatized.
Yeah, we're at a point right now that if you have $20 million, the Russians will send you on a trip in space. You can go to International Space Station. Think about this. There are a lot of people on this planet that $20 million means nothing to. And before long, it'll be even cheaper than that. Like Elon Musk, Bob Bigelow, the next big commercial space guy, isn't going to care. If they want to go to Mars, who's to stop them? They're going to go to Mars.
And they don't have to go with some protocols or government. I mean, they can just do what they want.
That's exactly right. As long as they're not violating some, commerce law or whatever. But what we know right now, the treaties say that space is the wild frontier. It is like international waters in the ocean. You're at maritime law once you get out of low Earth orbit.
Yeah, to me, it's very exciting.
And now with more launches, the probability of seeing extraterrestrials will increase. I really think that we are destined to explore our own solar system and then go beyond, because this is part of who we are.
I agree.
And this type of curiosity is hardwired within us.
It's in our DNA.
In our DNA, that we have to explore.
I think the one thing that's interesting here too is that the whole idea that there's extraterrestrials and UFOs coming here, that was all part of the Russian space program.
It's actually part of their, I wouldn't call it religion, but their metaphysics. The Soviet Union promoted cosmism.
Cosmism, right. Cosmism taught, we're life on planet Earth, came from space, and it was our destiny to go back into space.
At the end of the 19th century, Russian philosophers envisioned a radical new theory about the origins of humanity, called cosmism.
You can think of cosmism almost as a Russian version of ancient astronaut theory. It takes as its start point the fact that perhaps we come from the stars, and its end point to we need to go back to the stars.
This is considered to be the motivating factor behind the Russian space program. The Russian cosmos point of view proposed that Russia's ultimate future was to colonize space, and that in fact it was a spiritual prerogative to get out into space.
In May 1903, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, a cosmist and mathematician from Kaluga, Russia, published a landmark paper on rocket science entitled Exploration of Outer Space by Means of Rocket Devices. At a time when most of the world did not have automobiles or even electricity, Tsiolkovsky was trying to figure out how to travel to the stars. One hypothesis he proposed, called the ideal rocket equation, calculated the amount of velocity needed to lift an aircraft into outer space.
Amazingly, that 1903 equation was used directly in the launch of Sputnik 1. So it was hugely influential, and it worked.
Cosmism inspired Konstantin Tsiolkovsky to do his research and work related to space travel. Tsiolkovsky is saying that we are living in cosmos expand our limitations, we go to other planets, colonize other planets.
What led Tsiolkovsky and other cosmists to subscribe to such extraordinary beliefs? Ancient astronaut theorists believe the answer can be found in Tsiolkovsky's own writings, in which he described receiving an extraterrestrial message from the stars.
There is the interesting part of Tsiolkovsky's story that at certain point he almost asked this intelligence he believed existing here, can you show me some sign that you are here? And what he saw in the sky, clouds formed some kind of form which looked like a cross. And it obviously was not natural phenomena, so he saw this as some kind of proof.
Tsiolkovsky's work ushered in a new era of human exploration, motivating the Russian government to send cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin to space in 1961. Could it be that the goal of the Soviet cosmonaut program was not only to demonstrate technological superiority, but to connect with extraterrestrial beings?
So, do we know of any stories that could relate some type of a UFO encounter? The Russian cosmonauts have quite a few stories, and a famous one happened in 1984 when 3 cosmonauts were on the Salyut 7 space station.
Orbiting 172 miles above the Earth, the Salyut 7 was Russia's scientific research space station. On July 12, 1984, cosmonauts Oleg Atkov, Leonid Kazin, and Vladimir Solovyov were on board the spacecraft when they witnessed an extraordinary event.
During the Salyut 7 mission, Soviet cosmonauts had a bizarre encounter. The spacecraft was surrounded by a strange glow, and all of a sudden they saw immense figures outside in space.
3 cosmonauts saw something at one of the windows that looked like, they described it as like an orange glow that looked like human faces, but they were huge, like the size of a jet plane, and they couldn't explain what it was.
What makes this event even more compelling to researchers is that the cosmonauts not only described the same bizarre vision, but they also reported being overcome with a strange feeling.
The Salyut 7 encounter, the cosmonauts felt a sort of sense of well-being. And that's interesting because it's counterintuitive. You would think that in that difficult and dangerous environment of space, when something unusual happens, the natural instinct would be to panic. And yet quite the opposite seems to have happened.
I was on a Russian space station for 5 months, myself, 2 Russian cosmonauts, spoke Russian the whole time. And, they'll tell you stories about old Salyut 7, where they had a couple cosmonauts that said they felt sort of the presence of angels. And it gave them kind of a good, comfortable feeling.
Could the sense of well-being experienced by the Salyut 7 cosmonauts indicate they were in the presence of beings from another world? Is it possible that they encountered similar entities to the ones reported by famous cosmist Konstantin Tsiolkovsky?
Tsiolkovsky believed that basically whole universe is alive. That means that universe is teeming with life, and these forms of life almost don't have physical body.
Might they actually be the same as what the cosmonauts saw from Salyut 7? And that's interesting because this is the Russian idea that when we do go to the stars, we will encounter extraterrestrials, is thus inextricably bound up with cosmism and the whole Russian view of space.
The Russian cosmonauts were more open to the whole idea that there's aliens are coming here, and there are many curious episodes that have happened in space, and we're also curious about what astronauts see while they're up there on the moon or in these space stations, on spacewalks.
But you know, one of the best people to ask these questions would be an astronaut. And so I have Dr. Leroy Chow, an actual astronaut, waiting with a video call.
I can't wait to see that.
We actually have Dr. Leroy Chow, an astronaut, waiting for us on a Zoom call. So let's see what he has to say about this. Hi, Leroy.
Hello, Dr. Chow.
How are you doing?
Hey, guys.
Pleasure to meet you.
Excellent. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Nice Saturn V model you have in the background.
Thanks. Thank you.
So tell us, I mean, not many people have been to outer space. And I think one of the most basic questions is, how does it feel?
Sure. I mean, it's really a special experience, as you can imagine, especially the very first time you get actually into the vehicle and launch into space. More emotional than I expected. Of course, I looked back at the Earth once we got into orbit, saw how beautiful our Earth is with the colors being so bright, and quite an emotional experience.
How many missions did you have?
I flew 4 missions into space. My first 3 missions were aboard space shuttles. On my 4th flight, I trained with the Russians. And we launched the International Space Station, where I served as the commander and NASA science officer during Expedition 10, which was a 6.5-month flight.
I'm very interested in any unexplainable events that you might have seen or experienced. Have you ever seen something that you couldn't explain?
Yes, actually, I did. You know, on my last spacewalk during my space station mission, we were in that twilight, time between going from darkness into light. And I saw what looked like 4 or 5 lights flying by in formation. And it was like, whoa, what is that? And I called out in Russian to my Russian crewmate, and he was also outside with me. I said, hey, did you see those lights fly by? And he was facing the other way, so he didn't see them.
So when you see the lights going by
Yeah.
you thought they were perhaps UFOs?
You know, at the time, I didn't know what they were. It wasn't until later, after we landed, somebody had figured out that we were off the coast of South America. Said that I had seen the line of fishing boats using very bright lights to attract squid.
But wouldn't you see the lights of Buenos Aires or Montevideo at the same time? Because that's where those
Normally
squid
you
boats are.
would. Normally you would, but who knows? I wasn't sure which direction I was facing because we were in that twilight, and I couldn't tell which direction was the Earth and which direction was deep space.